Okay, I'll give you a bit of a background about what is business need and what are the factors we will consider in defining the business need, and what is it, the standard documents, or we may say a template that can be used for business need document. Okay, again, remember that every organization, especially the matured organization, will have their own templates. And when you join any new organization, you may just simply ask them, do you have any template which I can use? So if they have, they will provide you the empty template which will have all the information structured. You'll have to just fill in your basically the details about the project. Okay. Okay, so I'm going to basically talk about the business need. Now, when we talk about the business need, again, providing you the background, that is defining a business need, that is either a problem or an opportunity. Opportunity could be an idea or the concept. Okay, to do this, you may have to follow the following steps with respect to defining the current state, that is as is, and the future state. Okay, so how do we understand when we define the business need? You may have to understand a little bit of background about your business, and that's basically we talked about in the first day of the session. Okay, that's a business definition. Business definition may consist of analyzing following information. That's a type of entity, whether it is a proprietary, corporate, public limited, or cooperative, or government, or profit making, non-profit, or it could be public private, what we call partnership. Okay, so that is one. It could be also talking about the business domain. This is very important. Basically, the domain part plays a big role. A business domain, are you from the agriculture background or service background, hospitality, defense, healthcare, banking, retail, manufacturing, logistics, etc. There could be various domains are there, because your the project and the related requirement changes accordingly, and the needs are changed. For example, when you talk about the hospitality or healthcare, then you have to first thing you have to consider the regulations within that, and HIPAA Act, FDA related requirements are there. The moment you talk about the banking, then you are talking about the uh, the regulators are different, so their requirements are different, the industry requirements are different, right? So that's what we're talking about, is the requirement. The product and services, you have to list all the product and services, or product or services, or the both that are offered. Some organization may offer only products, some of them may offer only services, some may offer both. Like for example, a car manufacturing may offer they manufacture and sell the car, as well as also provide the servicing car servicing facilities. Okay, then we may also look into that organization structure. When we talk about the organization structure, we have to see what are the organizational units are there and subunits are there, and how they are connected to the main entity or head office. It's not only that, you also may have to check what are the communication channels and how they communicate with each other. So that will help you to basically understand the structure as well as bit of a culture. Then comes to the people and their association with these entities. Who are the people heading, and who are the people working, who the decision makers are there, and their role and the position in the organization hierarchy. Okay, so that's basically help you to basically give you additional information. So when you are considering modeling the organization, or creating the organization structure, or the hierarchy document, at that time you may have to consider all these factors. The management and its culture, now you look at this one, this also influences your the way it is implemented, the solutions, and the solution itself, and the policy, the way process of the implementation. Is it a democratic, lean management, hierarchical, traditional, modern, etc.? And also the quality policies, their standards, quality management process, what are the management values and beliefs, etc., also will play an important role. Again, we talk about the client, customers, and the market, their background and needs. I give you example this part here. um, the client and customers will play a big role. For example, if you have a bank, there is the State Bank of India, for example, and then we have is a ICICI Bank, and we may also have is a Citibank, and what we call HSBC also offering the banking services. But if you see, their customers are different and their backgrounds are different. So based on the customers and their background, the bank also offers the services in that way. Okay, so if you walk into the Citibank branch or the HSBC, you may find highly sophisticated executives basically interacting with you. But if you go to Shamrao Vittal Bank or maybe some cooperative bank, so you may find the culture is slightly different. It's nothing to do with the money. Maybe the customers in those cooperative bank may have more money also, but it's basically the customers and their needs are different. Okay, and that's how they cater to that. Then we talk about basically operations and legal compliance requirement, how the product and services are reached to the end customers. Are there any legal requirements are there? For example, in the banking, in the asset management, there was the MiFID II requirement, which was recently introduced. It means that if you are providing the asset management services, investment management services to your customers or the client, then you may have to provide the reports and the data in a particular way, and that is required in order to avoid any fraud and also create more transparency. So those are basically operational requirement specified by the regulators. Then you may look for the organizational goal. That could be long-term, short-term goals. Based on that, you can plan for the new solution, or you can also consider the business need. Now, what is a core competencies? Is it a product or services or other things are there? What is, like for example, when the FedEx has launched, they have introduced the 24 hours delivery, right, within the US. So that was their core competency, right? Then we talk about the competitive stance. Who are the competitive and comparison with the competitors? Compare your stand against 3 level up and 3 level down. So that will help you out to basically understand where you want to basically go. I mean the future aspirations, and what will be the requirement in relation to the solution, if there are any requirements. Okay. Now I would talk about the next is the external influences. There are definitely external influences. We may talk about is industry benchmarks, and for example, the business analyst along with the market research analyst will have to understand the industry standards in terms of product process quality. For example, in the IT industry, it is CMMI level. Okay, and I talked about for other other organizations, the other industry, they may have different basically benchmarks, right? The current and potential future trends in the industry. You may consider what are the current trends are there, and based on the historical data, you may also project what could be the future basically trends, and that we may consider as a future requirement. Okay, this is basically, we need to basically plan all these things so that we can prepare uh, our business need document as well as the business case document, so that the management who's the sponsor who's funding, they will know what could be the future requirement, what could be how the project will move from current state to the future state. Okay, and again I just said there's a last point here, we're talking about the new regulations, which I basically talked about what are the new regulations. And then the last point here, it is the number 3 is a technology. You have to basically consider the what are the standards in the industry in terms of the technology, and where do we stand, and how much basically whether it will the current existing solutions or the current state is going to threaten the brand value, customer service, or overall business. This is important factor to consider. Okay. Now, when we talk about the identifying the problem or the opportunity, we have following areas to work on. For example, we record the problem and the opportunity area. the source of the problem. Now where the problem is coming from, now as we talked earlier, it is a bottom up problem, is always reported by the users, and this basically reported to their seniors, and it could be the managers who basically review it, and if he finds that the problem is occurring um, on a regular basis, and the impact is also high, uh, it's combination. They will see whether the occurrence of the problem and the impact. If the impact is very high, then they will consider as they'll consider to basically go ahead for the new solution. What are they will consider to resolve that particular problem. Then this is where we basically define the problem. Then we write the background of the problem, how it has arisen, and how the opportunity has been generated. Okay, so in these are the both are basically similar way. If in case of the opportunity, as we mentioned earlier, it is a top down. If the management identifies a certain opportunity, then they may consider of basically implementing that and staying ahead in the competition, right? Here it is impact analysis, or identify the business value, or the impact business impact analysis, that is called BIA, is basically prepared. Now in this case, when you prepare the impact analysis, you may consider few areas. What is the area? That is, which part of the organization or the function is it is affecting. For example, the problem it is in retrieving the sales data for a retail chain store. Check if the problem is in one region or in across the region, or it could be one field or some more fields. That way you can identify what is actually area it is impacted. Now stakeholders, who are the stakeholders? They are getting affected directly or indirectly. Are there more number of stakeholders getting impacted with the problem or the opportunity? The nature of impact indeed is needed to consider before the business need is fully defined. Okay, so this is important factor. How will you see who all are affected, right? So if more number of stakeholders are affected, then you can see the seriousness of the problem along with that. Okay, now I would talk about the next is business operations. Now here it is important whether what kind of operations has been affected or have been affected, right? So it could be one process or entire business processes, or it could be industry-wide impact. For example, if the change in the service tax may impact the pricing and the accounting process in the organization. For example, we talked about last year GST was implemented, right? Goods and service tax in India. So that impact was for the entire nation. It's just not one area, right? That it is. And if you consider the implementation of Basel II, Basel III, that was basically entire industry. So the GST, if you consider, it is basically all the businesses in India. But Basel II, Basel T is, or Basel II and Basel III is impacted only on the banking, but across the world. Okay, so that is what we are talking about, the difference between the impact. So these are the factors we need to consider when we consider the impact. Okay. Then it comes to the financial and non-financial impact. Then we talk about that. If the proposed, what is a possible solution, and will that help us to increase the value, or it will decrease the expenses, or it will bring in the new customers, or it will bring in more money from the existing customers, or it will improve the employee morale. There could be various other factors are also basically considered in order to understand what could be financial and non-financial impact of a proposed solution. Okay. Now there are few more factors we have listed here. Brand and image impact. These are basically intangible the impact, and we'll have to basically consider how the brand value it will impact. Will that basically have indirect impact on the future businesses or the shareholders and taxpayer values and all. Then we talk about the policies and legal and compliance. What are the impact on the what we call new compliance, or the policy change may result into the change in existing operations. Now these are the basically we are talking about all these points here. We are talking about what impact it will have on if we propose a new solution. Okay. Then we have is recommending the possible options to deal with the problem. So we'll have to be, as a business analyst, we come up with the possible options. Of course, it is not done isolated. You will have to basically work closely with the stakeholders and the project manager before we consider proposing any recommendations. Then setting up a realistic expectation in dealing with the problem. So what are the realistic expectations are there? Here some of them we have listed here. For example, objectives and outcome of the solution. Objective must be fulfilled when the expectations are met after implementing the business solution. And there are various objectives could be there. For example, the goal must be logical, reasonable, doable. If you are talking about there is a reporting tool is required, so the object of the solution could be the tool should generate the reports, okay, like that. Then we verify and validate and redefine the business need. What do we mean that? We align the business need. We ensure that outcome of this exercise, that is business need, is actually align it with your organizational goal and objective. For example, the operations cost must be reduced by 15%. So check if there is a need to process improvement or re-engineering. Or another classic example could be provide a value added services to the existing products or to retain the existing customers, or increase the customer, that could lead to the increase in customer base by 10% within 1 year of implementing the solution. So this is the various ways we can add a value, either increase the revenue or retain the existing customers, have a competitive advantage, and fulfill the regulatory requirement. There could be n number of basically goals can be achieved through the business need document definition. Okay, and also the defined business need clearly should explain the problem area or the opportunity area for the organization. For example, 30% of customers have complained about their experience online buying process. They further stated that e-commerce website is relatively difficult compared to other websites where they can browse and buy items hassle free. So these are the basically complaint which this kind of basically complaints, if you receive it repeatedly, when it is a basically cause of concern which required you to address them immediately, because most of the time in the current scenarios, the customers or the visitors on your website have no really time or patience. They may stay there for 30 seconds, and if they cannot figure out, they will just leave it and go to your competitors and buy the solution, okay, buy their what we call the what we call buy their products or services, right? Now we talk about ensure the final version of the business need is has achieved the consensus of the key stakeholders and affected people, and it is supported by valid trends and the data or the and also analysis. Okay, so this is the main criteria when you basically prepare your business need document. Okay, so that is a basically little brief background about your business need. I'm going to take you to the template now. Yes, this is the basically template. Now before I start, any questions you have? I believe there are no queries, so I'm just going to go ahead. Okay. Now this is a template. I wouldn't say this is an ideal, but this could be one of the ways you can present your business need. Okay, and it since we are taking online banking solution as the example throughout the training, you will have this information in the document as well, and all other remaining templates also. So this will help you to basically prepare a case, or maybe understand how the information can be basically presented in a different way for a different purposes for the different stakeholders. Okay, and this is a business need document, and standard part, if you see the version, which will 1.0 means it could be the initial draft or initial version. So based on this versions, you will know how many basically iterations it has gone through and how matured is a document. And it is a date, it could be DDMM, YY, or it could be the way you want, you feel comfortable. And the next part is talking about, next page is the version history. In this version history, if you see, there is a table which explains the version history. The first is a version number, like here it is mentioned example 1.0. It is created by whom, the author's name and the role, created on, so what is the date. The date basically will talk about how whether it is a latest document or it is an old document which has not been touched by, or it has not been updated for a few years or something. So this is a created, and basically here it is approval date, right? So here it will come to know about number of version it is gone through and what is the latest the approval. Okay, so that again not only give you the maturity of the document, but also the people who are involved in managing the document, either by creating or approval. In case if you have any queries about a particular change or particular requirement mentioned here, and or particular revision, you may want to go back to that particular person and address your, and ask them to address your queries. Okay, the created on, approved by, name and his role or her role, and approval date, and the reason for revision. So here this reason for revision will tell you why a particular document has gone through a change. Okay. Now the next, basically this is the what we call page which gives you a note to the author or instruction, what you, how you need to complete this document. And then here if you see, everything is in italic, but wherever this part is there, it talks about that you need to insert the information. Okay, and this is also here, angle bracket, square bracket, and you can just go through that, all of them are there, and I will explain you all the template. Okay, and here we are talking about replace this information in the angle bracket. Okay, and you can also change the properties of the document and change the document name and author name and the other the information, right? And you know how to do that, right? Once you save the document, you can, I'll show you how you can do it. Okay. After you click OK, close the dialog box and basically go ahead and complete your document. There could be some boilerplate text, basically those also you may want to use it. For example, once you add the information, then you can see which is the heading 1, heading 2, heading 3. These are important for you to basically highlight and select, because that will help you to basically create a index table or the table of content. It can be inserted. Okay. If you don't highlight the header 1, 2, 3 properly, then you cannot get the table of content correctly. Okay, so this part is very important. To update a table of content, right click and select update field and choose the option update the entire table. Okay, so I'll basically take you to another document and show you, but let me first explain this document, and we will see how the table of content can be created. Okay. Here is a table of content which is basically not created, just a sample you mentioned, because there is no page number, so you can't basically see here. Okay, that, but this is just for your understanding, and put it into that table. Is introduction, purpose of the business need and state business need statement document, general information, investment and project description. And then you have appendix 1, business need statement approval, and then references. So this is a small document basically. And if you see introduction, you provide here purpose of the your project. So here it is mentioned as a purpose of the online banking solution document. Okay, so this is a basically project name. Business need statement will identify the project idea that may turn into a proposed investment or a project. Okay, it will include a brief description of the proposed project purpose, goal, and the scope. Remember that this part are included, as well as a rough order of magnitude, that is in terms of the cost and the schedule and the basic business and technical skill required. Okay. Business need also provides the sufficient information to justify the decisions whether or not the organization should move forward with the development of full business case. That is important because this gives you initial idea whether the problem is justifiable, and another part is the considering all the problem and the purpose and the impact and other possible solutions and the cost and the timeline. So this you can basically propose. Of course, all these are at a very high level, so the things will change once it goes into the detail level. Now here again we have also mentioning here additional data information entered here within the business need statement. The business case document should be leveraged to populate any related information required contained within the policies, processes, or regulations. For example, Sarbanes-Oxley in the US for accounting standard, or trading process defined by Security and Exchange Commission in USA, or SEBI standards. SEBI again, the India's basically regulator for the stock exchange, okay, stock market, or banking process as defined by RBI. So those also you need to basically incorporate the data if you want to justify your project and if that is related to this regulatory and other. Now in case of general information, if you see here date requested, so you write the date which is it is requested by particular stakeholder, who requested by person's name, email, his email ID, phone number, and again who is COO or CTO of that particular team or unit or organization, their name, okay, and who is the business owner. So you can basically mention enter the business owner and the manager supporting this document. And this comes to the crux of the whole document, basically investment or project description. Either you invest if there is an opportunity, or there is a new project you need to initiate to basically get to address the problems which was identified. Then we talk about a name. Enter a name of the investment or project being proposed, and desired start date. You may write down the start date, okay. And business need, here you will write down in 2-3 lines or maybe 5 lines what is the description of the business need that investment or the project is being requested to address. Include the perceived benefit. Now here it is, you may have identified some benefits, those also you need to address, provide. There's both tangible and intangible benefits, okay. Then the next section you have to write down the goal and the scope. What is the goal of the purpose and the goal and the scope of the proposed solution. And you may also mention here the detailed description about how the proposed the investment or the project will align with or advances the goal and the objectives. So everything what we propose must be in line with the business goal and objectives, okay. Either it is the current business goal or objectives, or it could be future, or you can also say how it will basically advances the what we call current state, okay. And rough estimation, you can provide the rough order of magnitude, or you can say that estimations of that proposed solution. Here it is in terms of basically the amount, like number of man hours required and the resources required, other resources, that hardware, network and tools and tech which we need to buy, and also the based on these resources what could be the cost. And the last part here is mentioned here is basically technical risk and issues. What are the possible the business or technical risk or issues the project may likely, the business or technical issues may be of doing or not doing the particular particular project or investment. Now here it is, the approval part. If you see the signature, print, name and title, here it is, whoever is the stakeholders who is supposed to approve, they will basically write down the name, title and all and obtain the signature. Okay. So that's basically all about. And the last part, if you see, it is a reference document. You may have to refer particular document, for example certain policies, certain quality criteria, audit reports which asking you to improve the existing process, or the new regulators have sent you the what we call a notice or something to implement the new change or new process, and maybe more. Okay. So that basically you can add, or you may also have identified certain new opportunity in the last meeting, last management meeting, and the you can attach the minutes of the meeting for the reference. The key terms, this is appendix. If you have any key terms, you may basically add them, and those you can be added in like that, term and definition. So you can add some which are the key terms are there. For example, we mentioned the SEC, then you can have the Security and Exchange Commission, that's a US regulator, right? SEBI is again Indian regulator. So you may have certain words which are may, which may not be familiar to the stakeholders. Those need to be basically put into the document, so the audience or the readers will understand the document well. Okay. So this is basically typical the business need document. What I will do is that I will send the template across to you all, so you need to complete this document. Okay. So here the document we will refer here is executive summary. Okay. So if you refer this particular document, it is a combination of business need, solution scope and business case. Okay. So you may refer this document in order to complete your this document. Okay, I'm just showing. But we will discuss that at later stage, but I'm just going to show you here it is. There are multiple templates are there. This is the document actually, the vision and a business case. So this also includes your business need. Okay. So once we learn the business need and the business solution, solution scope and the business case, we will come back to this document and learn the entire document in one go. So you can basically prepare similar the document as a part of your practical session. Okay.